Alrighty, so it's the next day here, and I've let the hull dry completely with the first shade of blue, and as you can see, it dried pretty well. Today I've been doing a lot of detail painting on the conning tower in particular. So I got the flat gun painted, I got the wood panels on the winter garden painted, just a lot of small details kind of inside, and then like the big part was doing the wood siding here on the interior. And what I did for this was I masked off this area in here, and then I just started applying some acrylic paints in there, and it's multiple colors, kind of a mix of black, a little bit of burnt sienna, and a little bit of earth brown to create the kind of wood color there, which you see inside. And then, like I said, just a lot of other little details painted, like the hatch, periscope, all that's been, you know, all that's, there's a lot of color variations you can see, so just a lot of realism like that comes from, you know, just painting different colors here and there, and, you know, just looking at prototype photos and painting things differently. That way it isn't all one uniform color. So, you know, it's looking pretty good so far. The big thing with the conning tower at this point is I will have to paint the emblems onto the sides of the conning tower on both sides, and then I'm also going to have to put the handrail and install that, and then do the paint touch-up on that, and then the conning tower will pretty much be done here. So that's the conning tower for now. I'll keep updating as I go on here. And then the deck gun is completely painted now, as you can see, and it's looking pretty good so far, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. It took me about 2 hours to do the deck gun. A big modification I did here, though, I found that the barrel just, it wasn't cutting it. It didn't look right. What I ended up doing with the barrel, I ended up sawing off the stock barrel on this gun, and I replaced it with some tube styrene, which, you know, it already has the hole on the end here, and it looks a lot better. I repainted it so that everything looks good. So the only thing I got to do now with this is put the spiral thread on the barrel, and then put the little cap on. So other than that, it's coming along really well. It's pretty much done. Just a few other little details to this, and this will be complete here. And I'll go ahead and show you guys the hull before we put the next color on. So you can see the gray has been applied, and just so you know the areas I hit, you can see this is the primer gray, and this is the Kriegsmarine gray that I custom mixed. So something that's really interesting also that I did once this dried, this morning I got my acrylics back out. I paint matched the color that I made for the airbrush, and I did a bit of a kind of a wash effect, and kind of like some salt and kind of some fading effects on the tanks here, and kind of around, you know, a lot of the panel lines and all that, and a lot of the rivets, to kind of create a little, just kind of some variation in color like these usually had from all the erosion and just the constant contact with salt water. It bleaches the paint pretty well, so you get a lot of fading. So that's what I kind of did here, just as an experiment. You can see a lot. It's kind of hard to see because the color is so even, but you can see kind of, if you can, some of these streaks and stuff that I did with the dry brushing effects, especially on the front part here. It looks pretty good, so I'm pretty happy with that. So what I'm going to have to do now is I'm going to have to start masking the area off here that I want to protect, and then get it ready so I can paint the dark gray on this part. So that'll be the next part here. So I'm going to go ahead and get things set up, and we'll go ahead and start masking the top section of the hull here. Alrighty, so I'm going to go ahead and try to zoom in here on these ballast tanks, because this is where I'll be starting, and it's actually pretty easy how they did this. This line here on the tank is actually generally where this would be masked off and sprayed, from what I've seen in the photos. So what I'm using again is my painter's tape here, and I'm just going to go ahead and start peeling some strips out. And I know you guys already pretty much, if any modelers are watching this, you already know about all the various techniques for masking and stuff, and there's really no technique to this. It's just simply masking at the line here, and then this is basically your reference point for the entire hull portion. Now I've already done the other side of this, so I also have a pretty good idea of how I need to lay this out, but there's, like I said, really no science to this. It's just, at this point, taking the time to mask off the tape. I'm going to try to be careful and work around these handrails as well, because these are very important to keep covered, because I just took the time to spray these, and I don't want to get the wrong color back on these and then have to retouch up, you know, or go back and have to touch them up all over again and risk, you know, damaging them. So I'm just going to mask around these very, very carefully when I get to it. But for now, this is pretty much what I'll be doing. So I'll come back here in about 10-15 minutes once this is completely covered, and I'll go for you guys one more time before we hit the paint booth, so to speak here. Alright, so a quick look at the masking job here. You can see it's nothing too crazy. I just masked right here at the water line and right at this main, basically this seam, and then along the ballast tanks all the way to the back here, and then it wraps around, as you can see, and it looks pretty good, and it's pretty tight, so it looks like I should be able to spray this over and it should be a pretty clean line, so hopefully we can avoid any kind of overspray here. Like I said, it looks solid enough that we should be able to avoid that. On the handrails here, I just took the tape and applied it to the sides here and made sure that the tape isn't exactly touching the railings, because obviously I don't want to you know, put the tape on here and then have it touch the railings, and when I pull this back off, rip the railings off. So even though I've taken these extra precautions, I'll still have to be careful when the time comes to peel the tape off, just to be careful. Even around the neck cutter here on the front, I'll have to be really careful when peeling all this off, so I don't rip any of the parts off, because that's very, very important here, because I don't want to have to glue those back on and then have to touch all that paint back up. So I'll just be very careful. And the same on these assemblies here on the back too. I've covered these up. And like I said, everything's looking pretty tight, and it's pretty much ready for paint. So I'll go ahead and get set up here and we'll start spraying. Alrighty, so we're pretty much ready to go here. I got my gray mixed together, and we'll go ahead and start spraying this onto the bottom of the hull here, starting from the front. Remember, thin, even coats. Don't try to overspray this right off the bat. You really want to take your time and just do this right. Remember, it'll pay off in the end too, when you have the nice finished model. So I'm just going to start spraying this. Also, don't try to rush this and try to spray a large area at one time. Try to go slowly. Just try to build up the layers and only work in small sections at a time like this. Alrighty, so I just hit the other side here, and you can see the gray went on pretty well. And the key to doing this with the airbrush is just maintaining thin, even, wet coats of paint. And you can see it's working pretty well. The gray looks very, very nice. So I'm going to allow this to dry very well, and then I'll hit the other side again and maybe do one more coat on this side as well. And then we'll go ahead and take the masking tape off and inspect our work. So I'll come back here in another maybe 2 hours or so, and we'll see how this looks. Alrighty, so that pretty much covers everything there on the bottom. So I think we're pretty much ready to go ahead and set this aside and let this just start to kind of air dry up here a little bit, and then we'll inspect it here in a couple hours, see how everything looks, decide if we need to put another coat on or not. Okay, so it's been about an hour now since the paint's dried and everything is good. I'm very happy with how it came out. I think it looks pretty good. But now we're going to have to go ahead and start peeling off this tape here really carefully. So I'll go ahead and just start at the front here, and like I said, I'm going to have to be very careful around the neck cutter, especially just so I don't peel anything off. I don't want to. I'll just start pulling it up here. And, so far it's looking pretty good. I'm not seeing an extreme amount of overspray, but I can see like a little bit of kind of just some, like just a little bit kind of in there where the rivets are. Isn't the worst thing in the world, but it's I can go back and touch that up later, so we'll keep going here. And I'll start working on the ballast tanks around the railing, and then grab the piece of tape on this railing, this piece of tape, and then I'll start lifting this up here. So I'm going to start working on peeling some of this tape up around the deck now and around these railings. Now, obviously there's a bunch of overspray around the railings from where I had to paint the gray on, but I'll touch all that up with a brush, so I'm not expecting this to be 100% perfect. Like I said, it was kind of a roughed in masking job. just so I didn't break anything or cover anything I didn't necessarily want covered for that part here. Even around the hatch here too, there's a lot of overspray that I can correct later. But for the most part, it's looking good so far. Pretty clean, distinguishing lines here. So I'm not too concerned right now. It's looking okay. I'll just keep going here. Alright, so you can see there's lots of overspray around the net cutter here on the front. And there's just a lot of various areas where it kind of peeled up on the deck here. And around all these small details. The hatch area is going to need to be touched up, especially around the railings too. That's all going to need to hit. Kind of hit up again. This hatch too. But overall, you know, I'm pretty impressed. I think it looks pretty good. And it's really coming along. It's actually starting to look like a real U-boat now, so I'm getting very excited here. It's really nice to see this thing starting to come along here. So what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and mix up a custom color here, and I'll go ahead and start kind of touching up some of these areas here that need the attention. And I'm going to go ahead and start. I'll go ahead and start that, and I'll see about doing some kind of some rigging here on these handrails as well, so I'll come back to that. Okay, so all the touch-up painting is done on the hull and the deck here. Everything's looking good. All the handrails have been touched up, so everything's looking really good here. And the paint job looks especially good. I'm very happy with how the colors and all that came out. I think it all looks really, really good. So everything is really starting to come along here, and I'm, like I said, really getting excited to see when this thing gets or what this thing will look like when it's done. But the next step here, while I'm doing some detailing on the deck and before I put the clear coating on the entire model here, I'm going to put some lines or some wires here in between these handrails, like on the real things. And I believe there were three of these wires that ran across each stanchion here, and I'm going to put those on. And the material I'm going to be using is some sewing thread here. It's not too thick, as you can see, and it works pretty well. So I'm going to be using this, and I'll just glue it in place onto these railings. So I'm going to go ahead and do that step next. Alright, so here we go. Right before clear coating, pretty much everything's ready to go. All the paint touch-up is done. I have the lines connected to the handrails here. So those are ready to go. I'm going to have to trim a little bit more off of this one on the top, though. So just some stuff like that. But it's looking pretty good so far. Everything's looking good. Everything's actually looking really good. As we look at the back here, everything's looking good on the back. And like I said, I think she's pretty much good to go here. So the next step will be to go ahead and put a clear coat finish on this. And it might take one or two to do this, just because I want to make sure everything's really, really good and covered for the later effects of weathering and all that I'm going to do later. I don't want any of the paint to start chipping off or anything, or at least not by accident. So we'll go ahead and get this thing clear coated, and I'll keep you guys posted as we go along here. So let's keep going. Okay, so we're just about ready for the next section here. Pretty much all the painting is done. All the final touches at this point are completed. I've mounted the deck gun in place. I've gotten the spiral cable installed. I still got to put a little barrel cap on this for the end here of the end of the barrel, excuse me. And other than that, that part will be done. Like I said, everything's looking really good here. I'm really liking where this is going so far. All the detail painting is done in the conning tower. I got all the deck plating done on the interior here, so that's all painted that charcoal color like on the deck. All the touch-up painting is done in the conning tower. Like I said, everything's looking good in there, as you can see, looking pretty sharp. On the sides of the conning tower here, I've painted the custom emblems, which look really, really nice. I did those off of some photos, so those look really cool. And you can see they're on both sides here. And trying to position them exactly to where they are was a bit tedious, because I wanted them to be in the correct position. So basically, I did this side first, and once I did the emblem on this side, I took a piece of masking tape, traced out the emblem onto the masking tape, peeled the masking tape back off, and then I basically mirrored it for this side, and then made a little mask, and then just started painting this emblem on this side. Once I did that, all the painting was done. I went ahead and clear coated it, installed the handrails here, painted those to match, and so everything's looking pretty good there. So you can see we're pretty much ready to go for the next step, which will be the weathering phase. One other little thing I got to do, which is going to be kind of a pain in the butt here, is painting these vents. So what I got to do here, there's really no way I can just mask all these off to paint them and put the black shadow effects in these. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to take some black acrylic paint, put it into these openings, and then whatever paint is spread up onto the panels here, I'll just have to wipe away with some Q-tips. So that's what I'll have to do there, and that'll be for all of these little guys, all these little openings, vents, everything. So, and that'll be on both sides, like I said. So that'll be the next step here, which I'll be doing in the next section. But for now, this part of the build and the painting is pretty much complete. So hope you guys enjoyed it this far. I'm sorry I didn't show too many steps here, but like I said, I'm not trying to take too much time up in these videos. I'm just trying to kind of go over all the various steps I was doing, when painting it and doing all the detail work to it. So, like I said, the next step will be covering all the weathering effects and all that. So stay tuned for that. But like I said, hope you guys are enjoying this so far. And if you like what you see, just keep following. I'll have another video up here pretty soon for the next section. So stay tuned for that. So thanks for watching, and take care for now.